Right. Now, we were talking about that a little bit earlier as well, as far as being in a warring consciousness as a species for many years. How do we get out of that? I mean, where do we gear our energies towards? How do we get out of the need for an enemy factor?
I think eventually we're going to have to realize that the only what holds society together is shared anxieties, and instead of being anxious about the whole rest of the world, with none of which is really scary anymore since the Soviet Union has broken up, the only thing we can get anxious about is the ecological condition of the planet itself. So that's enough to hold us together. The whole planet can be united behind the idea of let's clean up this mess.
Right. Right, and probably a major block to that is because to face some of those problems is going to require a lot of businesses or politicians to fess up to being part of that problem.
Yes, and of course there's the inertia factor. George Herbert Walker Bush, whose name, if you permutate all the letters, spells out huge berserk rebel warthog. He's very loath to admit there is an ecological problem, whether we need to spend any money on it or... Well, actually, I like Bush as a fictional character. I feel I created him. The presidents in several of my novels have an uncanny resemblance to Bush. He's mean all the way through. You don't meet that kind of consistency much in the real world. You generally only find it in fiction.
Right.
And yet here he is. He's walking around. He seems real. And yet he's mean all the way through, like the villain in a Frank Capra movie. Like the banker in It's a Wonderful Life. You know, mean, deep down mean. I like people like that. They make great characters for books. I know what I'm going to do in the next election. I'm going to vote for Frank Zappa. He's already announced that he's running, and he's got a great platform. He's going to abolish the income tax and the IRS. And that is the first political idea I've heard in this country in 40 years or so that makes any sense to me. Now that the KGB has been practically taken apart vertebrae by vertebrae, the IRS is the last truly totalitarian organization in the world, spying on its own citizens, terrorizing them. It's time that fascist contraption was completely torn apart, so I'm voting for Frank Zappa. Besides, he looks like a president.
Yeah.
Or he looks like a president should look, anyway. My idea of a president.
Well, it's certainly going to be an interesting election year. I mean, there's going to be some major doors blown.
Yeah, well, we've also got Billy Jack running for president, and Bo Gratz, the most decorated hero of the Vietnam War, who's running on an anti-Illuminati platform.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. Now, what's his stand? I mean, where is he pointing fingers, or what's his platform?
Well, he claims that there are people in Washington who have been heavily involved in the cocaine business for a long time, and that the Skull and Bones Society is a front for the Illuminati, and a few other interesting ideas like that, which deserve more publicity than they're getting.
Yeah.
Considering that he was the model for Rambo, he should be getting more.
Oh, yeah.
The fact that he doesn't get more press attention makes you wonder if there is an Illuminati conspiracy after all.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's one of those elusive topics. Seems so obvious that maybe it's not true. I don't know. So we've talked a little bit about what you think are the trends of the future to look towards, and you mentioned longevity, for one, and space travel.
Oh yeah, I think we're going to have a lot more time and a lot more space in the future. That's the general direction of evolution anyway. And also, eventually we're going to have to get used to the idea that the Cold War is over, and we reorient our society to something else. Since 1937, our whole society has been oriented to war, and this is a transformation like It's as big as what's happening in the Soviet Union, only it's a psychological transformation here at this stage. It'll turn into a political transformation. But how can America survive without a war? America has been oriented around war for longer than most Americans have been alive. Most Americans can't remember a time when this was not a war-making country. Henry Adams wrote that in his book on the Jefferson administration, that in 1800 America was the most pacifist country in the history of the world. By 1945, that had changed completely, and we were the most warlike country in the history of the world. Now we're going to have to go back to being pacifist. We're running out of enemies, unless they can really convince us that there are hostile aliens and UFOs about to attack in any minute.
Well, you've written a lot about that topic as well, extraterrestrials. And I've done a few shows in this format on interdimensional influences. So where do you stand with that? I mean.
I don't see any evidence of hostile aliens. You know, the report from Iron Mountain is supposed to be a secret government report that was leaked, and others claim it's just a satire. That has a page about if Russia were to collapse, what would we do? How would we survive without an enemy? And the thing is, we will claim the flying saucers are aliens who are about to attack us.
Now you are also a good, close personal friend with Timothy Leary, and he's written a foreword for the book I'm reading of yours now. He's into some interesting projects these days with software. Accelerated learning, interactive software, which you mentioned is an exciting part about the technology of today. Can you tell us a little bit about your history, your background with this man?
Well, I've known Tim since 1964, and this is a fascinating example of the difference between image and reality. The Timothy Leary I know is one of the most brilliant scientists I've ever met, with a really clear, crystal-like mind, a really fine analytical mind. I think he's done the best synthesis of all developmental psychology that anybody has done. He's taken all the work of Harry Stack Sullivan and Freud and Jung and Adler and everybody and put it all together into a system that synthesizes with what we know about the brain in the 1990s. I think it's a brilliant scientific achievement. And he's very interested in what we can do with computers to accelerate human learning, because Leary, the reason he got interested in LSD was Leary has always felt that we know what makes people stupid and unhappy is fixed ideas, and what we need is a technology that'll help people get over their fixed ideas without terrorizing them. And since LSD research has been forbidden, Tim has been looking for other ways to help people liberate themselves from fixed emotions, fixed ideas, rigid reality tunnels, mechanical reactions, mechanical perceptions. And he's got a lot of interesting software that he's been developing to stimulate brain change. The thing is that the American government isn't as paranoid about electronics as it is about chemistry, for some strange reason.
Well, unfortunately, we're coming up on the time, but I want to thank you very much for coming on.
Oh, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I'd like to do it again or invite you back anytime. I know you're moving up north soon, but thanks again for coming on and educating me on some of these issues that intrigue me and the viewers and the listeners.
Well, it was fun being here.
Yeah.